Steve, why are you interested in gender and disaster?
Well, I think gender and disaster is an important issue for us all because, you know, disasters have a different impact on us all, both before and during and after an incident, and we think differently at times. We have different functions to perform, and I think it's important that we need to take in all those considerations in our planning in our response to disasters, and thinking about the impact the disaster will have after the fact, not only on people that are in the community and families, but also with our own emergency service workers.
So, as Assistant Police Commissioner, what can you do to improve men's experiences during disasters and in their aftermath?
Well, I think this really comes down to, in terms of improving experiences, is to educate and talk about issues and the experiences of others. We can often respond to disaster incidents, and it's being aware of the impact it can have on our personnel that are attending incidents. In particular, we have a lot of support for our members after critical incidents in particular, but it's also thinking about the impact it'll have on their families and friends. Sometimes it's about talking about these issues, providing case studies of different experiences, because we all go through different experiences after disasters.
What about men working in emergency services organisations?
So in terms of men in emergency services, they need to have a really good understanding of themselves, about their skill levels, their ability to respond to a job, but also a self-awareness of when they are attending critical incidents, well, what impact does it have on them? Sometimes they need to think about, if they are under pressure, what sort of support do they need? Don't bottle up things, talk to people. It might be not only thinking about the impact it'll have on their work colleagues, because they might not notice it, but it's also thinking about the impact it can have on their families. They might be stressed or going through a whole range of other factors in their life, and so how does that impact on them, how they relate with their family, their friends, their work colleagues? And in terms of men in particular, they should be looking out for signs in their colleagues, whether they be in terms of those pressures, and provide support.
What can the organisation do to assist men?
Well, I think as an organisation to assist men, once again, it comes down to building an understanding and knowledge of different factors that can impact on men during disasters, the impact it can have on their families and their work colleagues, and talk it up, case studies, and also have support networks in place for them, counsellors and a whole range. Peer support's an excellent network that can be put in place in an organisation to really watch out and support people during times of difficulties.
What can you do to improve women's experiences of disasters and their aftermath?
Well, I think in terms of women's experiences of disasters, we need to be aware of the different pressures that they can be under during a disaster. We often perform different types of roles. Particularly women spend a lot of time with the families, and it can cause a whole range of stresses. And some of it is in terms of in the community, it's about engaging them in the planning process, getting that collaborative approach. Often there's no discussion around families around planning, and they need to be involved to have a clear understanding of what they can do. The other thing is to be aware that there are issues such as family violence that occur, particularly after disasters, and we need to educate people about this, and males in particular. But for women, it might be just asking them if they're okay afterwards, and it's thinking about the sort of issues that they might be confronted with both during, before and after an incident.
How about women working in ESOs? How can you assist them?
Well, one of the things about women working in emergency services organisation is, often they've got a lot of other pressures apart from just working. It might be their home life, they might have children, and we need to be aware of their circumstances so that we can provide a supportive work environment for them. Once again, you can set up your own networks. In a lot of the emergency services organisations tend to be male dominated, and I think that's an issue. And I think some thinking around recruiting more women and making it a much friendlier workplace for women to come to, because male dominated workforces can stifle innovation and growth in an organisation. I think it's great to improve the mix of personnel that are working, and certainly if I look at my own workplace, I've been recruiting a number of women to come and work within what's been historically and traditionally a male-dominated workforce at Crime Command, and it does change the culture and the environment. So I think that's great, and women bring ideas on how to support each other as well, and they challenge men. So I think it's great to, they're the sort of things that can be done.
Great. What do you regard as the biggest challenge in promoting gender equity in emergency services organisations, and how would you tackle it?
Look, some of it is the traditional approach in terms of gender equity for emergency services. We often think you need to have strength and to do jobs, and it is male dominated, and it's breaking that culture that women have a role to play. This is about teamwork. You work in teams at emergencies, and I think it's about really just changing the attitudes about the value that women can bring to a workforce.
How do you think you can change those attitudes?
Look, this is about recruitment in particular, but it's also about ongoing discussions and bringing senior people in from other organisations to talk about their experiences and challenges. And it's also about getting an appreciation from your own workforce about the challenges, particularly women in the workforce, about what's making or what are the barriers that they've faced, and trying to work through breaking down those barriers.
Do you have an example of when a lack of attention to gender had negative consequences, or do you have an example of when it, looking at gender, had positive outcomes?
Look, in terms of gender and positive outcomes, I think the fact that if I look at my own command, where we've certainly recruited far more women, they're just making a much more positive work environment for us. They bring a different perspective to all the work. They provide a lot of support across the board, and I think that's really positive. In terms of the negatives, we often see it when we haven't looked at issues, particularly where there's violence and family violence and conflict, that we've ignored issues that are brewing. We haven't we might have known about it, but we haven't responded early, and that happens in the workplace as well with conflict, and I've seen that happen a lot, particularly with women in the workplace, where they've probably haven't been well regarded or treated equally compared with a lot of their male competitors.
Just back to that positive outcomes, you talked about women in support roles. How about in decision making?
No, in decision, in my command in particular, I've got a number of senior women that have been selected into positions, and it's great. It's not just the support roles, they're detectives, but I've also got a number of high-ranking officers, and I've just gone through a selection panel process, and quite interesting, out of 4 senior positions within the command, 3 of them are senior female police officers, and I'm really excited about those new officers coming into Crime Command, because it's really going to change the culture.